Hi, everyone, and welcome to Get Nisty, the series that breaks compliance out of the checkbox trap and turns it into a real security advantage. No fluff, no FUD, just practical strategies to make compliance work for your MSP. I'm Jared Kasner, and normally I'd be joined in studio by my co founder of Blacksmith InfoSec and co host of Get Nisty, Michael Zabarski. However, this week we're bringing you an episode that was recorded on the showroom floor at ChannelCon, where Mike sat down with the CEO and founder of Spectre Cyber, Edward von Herberstein. With that, we turn it over to Michael. He'll take it from here.
Hey, Edward. Welcome to Get Nesty. You're with Spectra. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and the company.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on your podcast. So my background is 30 years in insurance, 10 in cyber insurance, and 5 working closely with channel partners who I see as a critical component of the cyber resilience supply chain, where MSPs deliver security, which enable insurers to provide comprehensive insurance, completing the resilience package for businesses. Spectra is a 4-year-old business that is channel first and only, effectively bringing the glue, if you want, between vendor partners, MSPs, managing those tools, and brokers and insurers at the back end, effectively transferring residual risk from businesses. So spending a lot of time with channel partners, brokers, and insurers is really what Spectra does, trying to build that trust layer between all those participants.
Excellent. And then, so you guys aren't an insurance company. You guys aren't an insurance broker. What do you do? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, as I said, we are strong believers in the everyone in their swim lanes. Identify best tools, best people in the channel, best brokers, and best insurers. What do I mean by that? Cybersecurity is a very complex business. Cyber insurance is a very complex product. The idea that people can do it all is I think a mistake, because these are very specific specialties. So what we do, we identify and certify channel partners who are really good at delivering cybersecurity, managed security for their partners, who have the tools to evidence the controls in place. And we effectively sell that certification and the data we collect from that certification process of MSPs to brokers and insurers, who then recognize our work and our badge, delivering the traditional way, better coverage and at a better price. So yes, we're not a broker, we're not an insurer, we're certainly not an MSP. We're really connecting good MSPs to brokers, again, who understand cybersecurity, cyber insurance well, and we believe everybody wins at the end of the day.
Now, and that's really cool, because now the company doesn't have to go through all the questionnaires with their broker and the insurance company, because once they become certified, they have that badge, and the insurance companies know. And I believe you guys have 3 different tiers that you can certify as, and so you get different discounts depending on which tier it's on, right?
Correct. So starting with our certification, it's not a pass-fail. We believe that cyber resilience and cyber risk security, capabilities that MSPs develop is an ongoing process. It's never finished, and maturity is the way to approach it. And continuing to improve and to keep up with threat actors and technologies that are out there means that there's no finish line. When we started, we had a pass-fail model, which we quickly evolved to a maturity model, which allows most MSPs to start. We have it starts with an approved stage, which is very minimal, but certainly allows to identify what does the minimum right. And then there are 3 levels of maturity that MSPs can access. So yes, we effectively deliver that certification according to the level that the MSP is at, and then they can progress through the framework.
Well, and it's amusing because Jared and I always talk on this podcast about, the biggest issue that most companies have, whether it's an MSP or an SMB, is just getting started with compliance. They get so overwhelmed by, hey, I need to do, 110 controls or 130 controls or whatever, depending on the framework. Um, and so they just don't start. They get into that paralysis, and we keep talking about, look, just start, do something,
Yep.
because you don't need to boil the ocean. Get the basics in place, and then grow from there and mature from there. So the continuous improvement model that we always talk about within cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean we talked about it just earlier before the podcast, but there's a big element of education. Not leading with fear, but explaining. What's the minimum? What's the starting point?
Yep.
Where are you today, and where can you get in the next week, months, quarter? And most MSPs who are committed to delivering quality services to their customers can get on that journey. It's absolutely achievable. So yes, there is, meet MSPs where they're at and explain a lot of education for all of us to explain to MSPs what steps they can take to progress. And there's lots of frameworks out there. Some are, more intimidating, to your point. But the reality is everybody focuses on the shiny, the latest tool out there, when the reality, there's a lot of very fundamental, relatively easy to put in place controls that will bring an MSP to a level of skills and capabilities that will already differentiate them from others who are really not doing it. Even the first thing.
Yeah, and well, it's amusing because most MSPs nowadays are cloud first. They don't have on-prem infrastructure. So really the biggest piece of their security program is going to be that third-party risk management, making sure that their vendor, doing the vendor due diligence. I talked to an MSP recently that had put into place for third-party risk management, vendor risk management. And we had this weird conversation where they asked, hey, we had a vendor that brought in a sub-vendor to do some automation for us. Do we also need to then do third-party risk management in that sub-vendor? I'm like, well, who's your contract with? Are you contracting with the vendor or the sub-vendor or both? And the MSP was like, well, neither. We don't have a contract with anyone. I'm like, wait a second, what? you specifically put in a process for third-party risk management. Where's that process? Well, it's a great question. I'm like, cool. So what happened to this automation vendor messes something up while they're doing stuff? Like, what's your recourse? It's like, oh, good point. So I'm like, cool, let's go get a contract in place with whoever's going to be the contracting entity here, and then figure out who the sub vendor is and whether your relationship is going to be with a sub vendor or just the vendor, and get the paperwork in place so you guys have some protection. Going back to transferring some risk and risk management in general, but it's really interesting because a lot of them are still focused, MSPs and SMBs, because really everyone's going cloud forward, are really focused on the how do we protect the inside of the company, which is still very important. And we still constantly have 2026 conversations about, hey, you should have MFA everywhere. And they don't get it. But a lot of them don't have that third-party risk motion at all.
I mean, and this is working with a vendor like Blacksmith helps us a ton, because you already surface the existence or the lack of controls, basic controls, right? That are really the first step toward resilience. I mean, we run into horrific scenarios. We've seen, there was one MSP that was rotating their vendor stack every 3 months to not pay vendor fees. We've seen some mature, we've seen crazy things, right? We've seen some very mature MSPs, 30-year-old, 35-year-old business, 5-10 million revenue, not having service contracts in place, to your point. And the CEO founder very confidently telling me, oh, if the phone rings at 2 a.m, I'm in my car, I'm going to go fix it. It's like, well, assuming you fix it on time and nothing bad happens. If you have a large customer or even a small customer and something goes wrong, they might go after you. You don't have a contract? How are you defending yourself?
Yep.
Yeah. And then the list goes on, people who say they encrypt and they don't, people who say they patch and they don't, people who say they isolate backups and they don't, people who say they have, capabilities in house that they just can't deliver. And a lot of it, is fairly basic and doesn't require a ton of work. And getting those fundamentals in place is the only way those MSPs and their customers will survive AI. Because what AI is doing is just accelerating everything, in good and bad.
Yeah.
and everything we've built, pre-AI is needed even more now than it was before. So it's an exciting times, but yes, effectively surfacing controls, verifying things, and proving that MSPs do what they say or what they should do is the only way, as customers increasingly and their stakeholders, insurers, investors, partners require evidence. Are all those things in place? Prove it to me.
What are you seeing on the just like insurance landscape piece? Are they, I know for a while they were asking for like more and more questions, more and more controls to be in place. It seems like they're pulling back a little bit now and requiring at least less as a barrier to entry. What kind of things are you seeing there with that?
So that's a big can to open. There's a lot in it. I'll say a few things that might be obvious to some of the listeners, but the insurance markets typically follow cycles of profitability and losses. Insurers learn by trial and errors and by experiencing things. When they lose money, they raise rates. They ask for more security. They restrict coverage. So we had a wave of restricted coverage, higher premium, increased scrutiny around security controls on the back of COVID, where the attack surface exploded. It was working from home and unsecured VPNs and all the things you guys know about. Guess what happened next? After the rates went up a lot, when controls were more strict and where coverage was reduced, insurers made a ton of money. Like a ton of money. And the cyber insurance market is a tiny, tiny piece of the insurance industry. But that's the exciting piece because it's growing fast, and now there's AI involved. It's like, how do we insure that? So insurers, and all the, I was at the cyber insurance conference in January in Miami. I think there were like 15 startups out of a market that had 70 players. So you can just imagine when you have a 20% growth in participant count, the amount of excitement. Guess what happens next? Everyone's come to the table, then they all fight for what's on the table. And when they fight, they drop the controls, the premiums requirements, come down, coverage goes broader, and they start losing money again. So when you say they're asking less questions, it's because they have to fight for the business. Yep. And if they don't make it easy, they don't win the business. So premium goes down, controls go down, and they start losing money. What happens next? I don't know if it's next year. I don't know if it's in 3 years. But somebody's going to say, I want whatever framework you use. I want proof of everything. Yep. Show me. And if you don't have that, Carfax for cyber insurance, I'm not giving you coverage. This is coming. I don't know when it's coming, but it will come because they are breaking even, losing money as I speak. And that's a worsening trend as I hear from Lloyd's, from insurance and broker partners. So it's going to be another cycle, where MSP will be the first to not get coverage because they're seen as a problematic risk, given the connection with so many vendors and customers. Yeah. So what we've seen in 22 will happen again. Again, I don't know if it happens this year or in 2028, but it's coming. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. I think that's key, right? That's the cycles of insurance companies want to make money. For some reason, I don't know why. Yeah. And so they're always trying to mitigate their risks. And so it kind of ebbs and flows as you go through it. Very cool. And then I think the other question that I had for you is, as a company goes through, as an MSP goes through, getting their insurance in place, making sure they're covered, what can they be doing? So one of the things that we always talk about in the podcast is that they should not be filling out the insurance questionnaires for their clients, but what can they be doing really to empower their clients to get lower insurance rates, other than get the basic controls in place, etc.
So, without falling into a pitch sales
Yeah.
from our side, I can tell you what works, because we're seeing very significant insurance benefits when you can prove that a customer has the right controls in place. So the work that your company is doing is what insurers need.
Yep.
Whatever you hear, this is what they need, because we're doing it, and effectively, the challenge that insurers have is they don't understand enough, and the market isn't big enough for them to change their ways to digest telemetry. So having a layer of trust, which is really what we do, between a platform like yours that effectively surfaces controls,
Yep.
a team like us, doesn't have to be us, can be somebody else, that just is trusted by insurers, that puts a stamp,
Yep.
called a Carfax. I'm serious. Once insurers have vetted our team, or whoever is the certifier, that third party
Yep.
verifier, everything becomes a lot easier for everybody. For the buyer, for the broker, who doesn't have to navigate cybersecurity audit, because let me tell you, cyber brokers don't have a clue how to approach those monsters. And MSP really shouldn't complete those applications, because that's part of the application, which should only be completed by the applicant, with the broker maybe, but certainly the MSP shouldn't be filling those applications. So how do you walk away from that? You take that piece of complex questionnaire out of the application, and you let a third party vet it, and effectively confirm that things are in place using technology like the one you guys have developed.
Yeah, and it's also easier than actually filling out those insurance questionnaires, because half the time those things have questions that make no sense. The answer options make no sense, and you're just like, I think one of my favorite ones was, do you back up everything? And the answers were yes or no. And it's like, well, like, we don't back up like individual workstations. What are you actually curious about here? And how do I answer this question without lying in the questionnaire? And like, you get into this like whole mess with it, where I think a service similar to yours that can come in and has the understanding and know-how to say, hey, here's what good looks like, and understand the risk profile of things. And then you can relay that to the insurance companies without, again, having to figure out, how do I add an addendum to this questionnaire to explain my answers some more?
I'll share a quote with you that was one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and build Spectra in 2022. At the time, the largest cyber insurer in the world, their global head was in Lloyd's of London in the UK. And he told me very clearly, questionnaires are asking the wrong questions. They get incorrect answers to the wrong questions, and they are out of date before they're completed.
Yep.
They are worth nothing. And 4 years later, those things are still around. I mean, we have to complete one for us when we buy cyber insurance. And I'm glad Eric does it for us, because I don't know where to begin. I'm not a CISC, so I can't do it. And I don't think we get credit for it. I won't go into the details of our own discussions, but I have proof that they don't look at it. They make you complete something that is painful, full of liability, and I don't believe they use it, because they don't know if it's true. I'll finish with one thing. We had one customer who claimed that they didn't have MFA. Okay, and we found out that they did have MFA, because we had evidence through the MSP that every single user at that company had MFA, but the client didn't even know what MFA was. Now you're laughing. This is the stuff that's out there.
So from what I'm hearing from you is the insurance questionnaires are a lot like the third-party risk management surveys that people send out, that you send it out, you get answers, you don't look at them, no one understands how to actually acknowledge or process the risk at an SMB, and you just file it and hope that A, nothing happens, and B, if something does, you have some sort of evidence to say, well, you guys said you were doing this, and you're clearly not.
They are symptom and the cause of two of the major problems for insurers. And I know we're not here to talk about insurers, but number one is access to data. Questionnaire was our best attempt to, I use the word surface, extract, identify controls. And when brokers don't have access to, anything, as we say, behind the firewall, they're left with questionnaires. As cybersecurity and technology continues to grow around businesses, those questionnaires get more complex, longer. It went from, you need MFA, you need backups, you need EDR. No, you need MDR. Last year was you need zero trust. With AI, starting to change, it significantly increased the attack surface again. Expect more questions that will be completely impossible for business to decipher. So the problem number one is, how do they get that data? And I know that's what you guys do, but effectively connecting, the experts like you guys to and transferring that data, that evidence, in a way that insurers can digest it, I think is key. The second thing, which is certainly not your problem, but one of the insurers' problems, maybe the biggest one, they struggle penetrating the small and medium-sized business segment. Because when you present something as horrific as a questionnaire to a 5, 10, 15 employee business, they just don't even want to look at it.
Yep.
And they can't sell insurance. They can't educate the customer about it. Brokers don't even want to talk about it because the questionnaire is so bad and painful to start a discussion with. So insurers need to solve this. And they'll solve this when they'll be able to ingest the proof of controls that you guys surface in a way that is sufficient for them to tick that box.
Yep.
Yeah. And effectively everything gets better and easier for everybody. Data and point of sale of insurance need to be simpler. So questionnaire are the enemy here.
Sounds great. Well, it was really nice having you on here,
Michael.
If you guys have any questions that you need answered, you can reach out to us on blacksmithinfosec.com/ask. Feel free to submit your questions and we'll get to them on the podcast. And we'll put Edward's contact info in the notes. So if you guys need to have questions for him and need anything answered, you'll be able to reach out as well. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Get this